Let's end on a really fun one. It's HIPPO tests. Now, I added this. Highest important paid person's opinion tests. Tests that's come down from the top. Do you run them?
Yes. Do you want a job? Yeah. Well, like, it is important that your stakeholders feel involved in the experimentation process. They should be, because they are the ones that are going to empower you to scale your program, get more resources, get more buy-in. So to just blindly say, I'm not going to run a HIPPO test is that, to me, that's not it depends. You just don't do that. But to your point, the it depends is like probably more the prioritization and the execution. I think one of the things I've struggled with a lot of times is HIPPOs will have this idea of a test and literally draw it out, or just say like, hey, look, this company is doing this. Let's test this here. And they've moved so far in the levels of like the execution when you need to take step, back it up and be like, why? What are you thinking? Because there's something they really like about this. So it's why are they testing it? Because the why will help you understand like the execution, satisfy them, but you could also start trimming a little bit of it to make it something that's more tailored to the experimentation program. There's a couple of HIPPO tests that like back in the day, it was a test that they're like, do what this guy's doing. And you ask why, what are you trying to do? And you keep on prodding and probing. And then you finally get to the problem statement of what they're trying to solve for. And they're like, that's a great problem to solve. By the way, we have this test coming up and this is what it looks like. We already have the design baked. Do you want to do this? And then they're like, oh yeah, that's perfect. And that helps show like the partnership, like you want to work with them because they are your stakeholder. But I think inherently HIPPOs get a bad rep because of the way they approach it to say, run this test, run this test. I don't care about the results, run it. Are they bad results? You probably did it wrong. It's false positive. I don't know. Like they usually get that bad rep, but there is a kernel of truth to why they want to do something. For the most part, they're not doing it maliciously, purposefully. They're doing it because they have some logical founded reason why they want to do it.
I think it's a great maturity marker. As you were saying, where you want to get to is your CEO or senior stakeholder coming to you with problems and saying, we've got an issue here and, please investigate. That's where everyone wants to go. And you don't want to fault them for trying to get to that path quicker, and if you're too focused on, well, it's a poor execution and there's things like that, it's actually going to erode the trust that you're trying to build. So yeah, I would say, maybe if you're very new in the relationship, if they've got it designed up, explain the processes and understand it and try and always go to that why. But, don't die on the first hill of blocking it, because ultimately you're trying to build a relationship. And there's plenty of experiments that I've run that I would have questions on. However, from a maturity perspective, the fact that it was maybe a new stakeholder, they got involved in the process, they're learning, they're understanding, don't penalize them for it. If they continue to do it and you're 12 months into a contract, or you've been working with this person for a while and they still come to you with mock-ups that are ready, or they say, oh, I've had somebody build this. Can we see if this, can we put this in? That's why I would say, that's maturity element. You want to try and work on it. We've had sort of prioritization scores, and we've added, the political element as part of the scoring matrix, because at the end of the day, it does make a difference. The emotional investment in it, whether it's the boss or a boss's boss, it's important. So yeah, I think the way you answered it was perfect. You don't want to say no. However, if you can get to their why and you can get to their problem statement, that's not a problem. And actually, we've been talking about trying to get to problem statements sooner and not having to worry about solutionizing. And I think that's part of sometimes the processes that maybe people feel the need to have a test idea that's fully baked. And that's just a misconception.
Mm-hmm.
And really, nobody needs a fully baked test idea. And it doesn't even need to be sort of formalized, it can just be, there's a problem. And the more of those you have, the better. And if it comes from a CEO, it doesn't really make a difference. The problem comes when the forces behind it that you are saying, well, we want to see if this test is a winner. And you go, is this something that's going to get implemented anyway? And they say, it's on our 6-month roadmap. It's going to get done. And you go, well, there's no point running it as an experiment, because as you were pointing out, they may question if it doesn't win. Okay, well, what about this type of traffic? What about that type of traffic? How big was the sample size or whatever? And they're trying to find the validation. And of course, that's really dangerous in the world of experimentation if they're too invested in it. And in those instances, I would just say, if it's going to get put in, just put it in, because you're probably not going to listen to the answer of the experiment anyway. And we would have been better off putting something else in its place. There's plenty of instances where they've had a direction they wanted to go down, and win, lose, or fail, it makes no difference.
That's such a fantastic point about, if a test isn't truly a test, because regardless of results, it's just going to happen anyway, then there's no point in testing it. And I think that's something that a lot of junior CRO experimentation, whatever you want to call it, folks do, is they don't think forward. Like, they don't think in the future. So it's, what happens if this test wins? Then X, Y, and Z will happen. What happens if it loses? Then we'll probably go down this path. It doesn't have to be defined tests. It doesn't have to be like, you have 7 tests planned, 3 if it wins, 2 if it loses, whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be that, but you have to have a concrete, like, what will happen in those particular tests. Win or lose, this path is the same. And there's no point in running it, other than to kind of, I told you so, but like, and that's another thing that I think is powerful. So I was gonna just say, like, when you think about hippos, sometimes there are truly those who have this personality trait that they can never be wrong. And that's just something that is just hard to get over. It's people are going to be who they want to be. But I do think there is an opportunity to use education along that way. So let's say HIPPO has a test they want to run. They've mobilized all the resources to run it. There is no possible way that you will be able to run anything else, because this is the test that they have to run, and you're boxed into a corner. Go ahead and run it. Because what happens when it loses or when it wins? If it wins, this is why we're in the field. We don't know if it's going to win or lose. There might be a reason why it wins or loses. And you want to try to help consult them to push them on the path of what's better for the business. But if it loses, you have those receipts. And you could even set expectations early. Like, one of the things, I think you mentioned this to me before, is there was one test that you ran that it was just never going to reach statistical significance. And you told them up front, look, this is not going to reach statistical significance. This is a waste of resources and design and a swim lane that we could test something else in, but they still want to run it. So you say, okay, great. I understand. Just to let you know, receipts, this is not going to reach statistical significance. This is a waste of time. We're doing this, but this is a waste, in nice language. And then the test runs, it doesn't reach statistical significance. And you could use that as an education opportunity to be kind of know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, I just see it as a way of increasing the maturity. And I used the phrase before that, you don't want to constantly die on the hill with certain types of things, because essentially you are working with a number of different people, and they will just force their way through if you constantly keep on saying no. But you want to enlighten them with certain things. And that might be for the HIPPO who's put an idea together that's purely based on, competitor review. You go, have you seen the latest internal research that we've done? And maybe they haven't. Maybe they can watch through a moderated session, and that will maybe help alleviate some worries. So there's always an area to go down, I would say. A HIPPO test is definitely not a bad thing, but what you want are HIPPO problems.